Krillik's mocking laughter echoed through Fortitude's operations center, oblivious that his arrogance would soon erupt into desperate choking when humanity's fury was unleashed. Nothing could have prepared the smug alien emissary for the truth. Captain John Graves seethed internally as the towering Tyrellian boasted their warship could decimate the outpost. Despite the dripping disdain in Krylak's voice, John maintained composure, offering a tour to subtly flex humanity's might. But dread churned within. John's forces were stretched thin, the outpost vulnerable. Humanity itself teetered on annihilation's edge. Everything now hinged on John safeguarding Fortitude from the coming storm. Action was needed immediately, or all could be lost. The door slammed shut behind Krylak. The smile faded from John's face with the sound. Silence fell over Fortitude's operations center, a short break in the coming battle. John turned to Lieutenant Mara Vance and Chief Engineer Gomez. They looked back, ready for his orders. No words were needed. "Let's see what we got," John said. He walked to the hollow table and switched it on. Blue light lit up their faces. Gomez tapped the table. A 3D map of the base's defenses appeared. Turrets, shields, the armory. The numbers were clear. Fortitude was outgunned. "We knew their firepower was better, but that's not how we'll win," John said, tracing the base layout with his finger. "We make this place a trap. We strike fast, vanish, and hit where they least expect. Vance, think like a guerrilla fighter. How do we do it?" Vance studied the map, thinking up plans. The maintenance tunnels. Hide bombs where structural damage will be high. Seal off sections. False heat signatures to fool their sensors. It won't be clean, but it'll work. John nodded, then turned to Gomez. "What about Emperor? Will it be ready?" Gomez shifted on his feet. "Risky, Captain. Just theories now. If we pull resources from other areas—" "Do it," John cut in. "Start now. Take what you need. If this fails, nothing else will matter." Gomez nodded. "Yes, sir. We'll start immediately." John checked the defenses again, making a mental list of upgrades to finish in time. No room for mistakes. "This is our home, our fight. We've survived the void when no one thought we could," John said steadily. "The Tyrellians don't know our strength. Let them laugh. Because when this ends, we'll be the ones laughing last. Get Fortitude ready for war." Vance and Gomez nodded and left to rally their teams. John watched them go, pride and tension in his chest. Fortitude wouldn't fall easily. Humanity was never about numbers or firepower. It was about the relentless drive that first sent them to the stars. The Tyrellians would learn the hard way that humans never bowed. Not to arrogance, not to might. Humanity would endure. Humanity would fight. The alarm screamed as red lights washed over the operations room. Captain John Graves stood stiff, watching the sensors feed raw data. The hologram showed it clearly. A huge mass of Tyrellian warships, their shapes cold and threatening, cut through space toward the outpost. The fleet's size wasn't just big. It was gigantic, a shadow stretching across space. Their power made the outpost's defenses look tiny. Every thought said to run, to live and fight another day. But Graves knew running meant giving up this borderland to the scornful aliens. He turned to his crew, their faces set, waiting for orders. "They think us weak. Today we show them human will," he said steadily. "We don't run. We stand firm. Get ready to fight." Graves' words cut the tension, lighting a fire of defiance. From stance to eyes, they were ready. Graves moved fast, pulsing with determination. Techs worked hard to open weapon caches. Hands grabbed the cold metal, not touched since stored, now a lifeline. Soldiers moved to stations, boots clanking on metal deck, marching to prepare. Hidden guns and missile launchers came alive, found purpose again. Lieutenant Mara Vance nodded, eyes hard with purpose. "We've rigged the tunnels. They'll walk into traps," she said. Gomez stood by the unfinished Emperor platform, its hum vibrating with desperate energy. "It's ready, Captain," he said. "If we time it right, Emperor could turn the tide." Graves clasped his shoulder, touch firm. "Activate it when time comes. We'll need every edge." The outpost bristled with activity. Soldiers on ramparts, engineers bolstering shields, medics preparing. No panic, no despair. Just purpose, the unspoken pledge that fortitude embodied humanity's refusal to yield. As the first Torellian ship appeared on the horizon, a shadow against the void, Graves climbed atop the command center, visible to all. "This is our line," he bellowed. "Here we stand." A chorus of shouts answered, ready for the storm. Pulsing heartbeats of humanity, courage, determination. Fortitude stood ready, a clenched fist against the Torellian tide. As the enemy neared, it was clear. This would not be the day humanity bowed. This would show the galaxy human will. The operations room buzzed as the sensors screamed warnings. Captain John Graves stood still, staring at the looming shadow on the holo display. A giant Torellian warship leading the first wave, with weapons ready to destroy. "Launch decoys," John said in a calm voice, hiding the adrenaline rushing inside him. Technicians released probes, each one speeding away and copying Fortitude's energy readings. In space, the Torellian ships turned, breaking formation to chase the decoy lights, like animals tricked by prey scent. Gaps opened in their wall. "Now!" John whispered into the intercom. "All units, target the giant's side. Fire!" The command center sprang into action. Soldiers relayed orders, technicians targeted weapons, as the dull throb of Fortitude's pulse cannons filled the air. John could almost feel the firing sequences vibrating the station's metal frame. Outside, beams of light sliced the dark, burning the giant's hull. The smaller human fleet darted between the massive ships, adding fire. John watched the giant jerk as hull pieces vaporized into space. "Laser teams, keep firing. Hit them again," John said, watching the damage spikes. The Torellian ship slowed, engines damaged, falling toward Fortitude. The giant loomed larger on screen, its shadow covering the station's image. John pictured the collision as he used the intercom again. "Brace for impact! Shields full power! Secure all levels!" he shouted. The crew worked controls, strengthening defenses. Every soul on Fortitude held their breath. The ground shook, rending metal sounds filled the air, blinding light flooded sensors. For a moment, time froze. Then, a thunderous boom as the giant met the shields. The force shook Fortitude, proving humanity's strength. "We stand," John muttered, silently promising his crew. The shields held. The station held. Humanity held. The station shook hard. Bolts popped out. Floor panels shifted under their feet. The groaning of straining metal pierced the air. Captain John Graves gripped the command console, knuckles white. He steadied himself as Fortitude shuddered from the impact. His eyes locked on the shield gauges, blinking wild, the strength bars barely staying out of the red. "Report!" Graves barked. The tech's fingers raced over the controls. "Shields down to 20%, power unstable, breaches in sectors 7 and 9, containment holding on by a thread." Graves swallowed hard. The constant shuddering under his boots reminded him of their desperate situation. He scanned the operations room. The crew looked pale, but their eyes burned with grit. They needed their captain to make the next call. Lieutenant Mara Vance was already at his side, face grim but voice steady. "We need time, Captain. I say vent the nuclear core, make it look like we're melting down. If we play it right, they might think we've had it." Vance's insane plan hit Graves like a gut punch, but he saw no other options. "Do it," he said, voice low but firm. Vance nodded and gave the command. Seconds later, the vents opened wide, vomiting radioactive vapor around Fortitude, casting an eerie glow on the hull. The Tyrellian ships pulled back, hold their fire. The bluff had worked. For a moment, a collective held breath, a silent prayer the lie would hold. But the victory was short-lived. Graves watched the power levels crash, the screens flickering out. Weapons went dark. The pathetic shield wouldn't stop a stiff breeze. Time slipped away fast. "Get those systems back up," Graves shouted. "I need shields and guns already." The crew jumped into urgent but precise action. Engineers dove into access panels, sparks flying from jury-rigged wiring as techs threw overrides. Vance stayed glued to Graves' side, coordinating the engineering teams. "We're funneling power from secondary systems, Captain. Won't be elegant, but we'll get those guns live again." The minutes felt like hours. Every second defenseless brought them closer to annihilation. The lights strobed overhead, the heartbeat of life versus darkness as Fortitude fought against the void. Graves watched the Tyrellian fleet, uncertain menace in the cold black, their next act hidden in space. The air crackled with tension, fear, and above all, iron will. Then, a faint whine, nearly lost amid the chaos. The slow, stubborn return of systems clawing back to life. A cheer went up, quickly stifled by their plight. "Captain, minimum shield power, but enough to cover us for now," the tech reported. Relief and worry mingled. Graves nodded sharp. "Target their flagship. They realize we're alive. They'll hit us hard. I want to smash back twice as hard." As Fortitude rumbled back to life around him, Graves felt it. A brief eye in the storm. They'd fooled the Tyrellians for the moment. No time to waste, no second to spare. Fortitude was wounded but breathing. Her crew ready to defy the odds, to defend humanity's claim, no matter the cost. The command center filled with the sounds of waking systems as screens flickered on. John watched them return to life. The Tyrellians had been exposed. An all-out invasion was coming. "They know," John muttered. Outside, dropships tore through the sky, metal and fire descending fast. They screamed as they hit Atmo, spilling troops onto claimed soil. Marching forth were steel monsters, not flesh and blood. Each heavy step thudded the ground. In hidden bunkers, rifles ready, soldiers peered out, holding breath. The air hummed with the energy of those defending their right to exist. Graves' voice ordered over comms, "Hold positions, wait for my signal." The metal sea advanced. Silence thickened. Then Graves' sharp order. "Fire!" The earth erupted, bunkers and trenches transforming into ramparts of defiance. Blasts thundered from rifles, shells pounded intruders. The ambush made the Tyrellian troops stumble, but they kept coming. Graves charged into the muddy trenches, boots splashing. "Tighten up! Stay focused!" The squad volleyed back in sync, faces set with determination. "Fall back to Echo! Draw them in!" John's voice cut through the noise, guiding them. The arrogant Tyrellians marched right into traps. Buried explosives rippled concussive waves, tossing steel bodies. Tripwires opened trapdoors, dropping them into darkness. The cold traps carved through the ranks. The trenches became a maze of carnage. Dirt now mixed with oil and human sweat. Shouts of desperate soldiers meshed with sparks, fighting not just for victory but to survive. Through his helmet, John saw the endless wave, the cold march of machines, but his squad held fast, their resolve steel. They stood ground, flesh and bone against metal. "Reload! Prepare to repel!" John ordered, demonstrating the reload himself. The squad mirrored his movements, ready to pay the ultimate price. John grasped the trench edge, gloves dirty, to survey the horizon. More dropships promised endless war. A ping-off metal pulled him back down. He met Vance's eyes, her face streaked with filth. "We hold them off, Captain, to the end." John nodded. "We do. Keep the lines tight." Above, the skies still threatened with more enemies. But the trenches held, human tenacity against the odds. Rifle ready, John knew this was just the beginning of testing humanity's will. The ground was a mix of dirt and oil under John's boots as the trench shook with another blast. He watched through his scope as the Torellians pushed ahead toward Fortitude's walls. With each shot, his rifle drove them back a few steps. One of John's men ran up, sweating and covered with mud. "Sir, message from Gomez. Emperor is done early. The prototype's not tested yet," the soldier shouted over the roaring gunfire. John paused to consider this risky move. He scanned the battlefield and saw his soldiers' fierce gazes meet his, silently begging for orders. He made the call to use the untested Emperor. "Activate it! Now!" John yelled clearly over the chaos. Silence at first. Then a deep, pulsing hum came from the outpost, like a heartbeat. The men froze, unsure what was happening. Then they watched as the Torellians' shields flickered and died. Confusion rippled through the enemy's ranks. John's hand squeezed the radio. "All forces, advance and hit them hard." The humans poured from the trenches, weapons blazing. Without their shields, the Torellians stumbled back under the intensifier. John watched closely as his troops exploited the chouse. He knew this advantage wouldn't last. The Torellians wouldn't fall for Emperor twice. The ground trembled underfoot. The defenses of Fortitude crumbled like a fist crushing dried earth. Dust and debris filled the air, stinging eyes and grit on tongues. "They're pushing through!" John shouted over the noise, voice rough from yelling. The Torellians adapted faster than expected. Their tech restarted as the EM pulse ceased. Alien shields flared back to life with a harsh glow. Fortitude's brief advantage disappeared. Disciplined ranks of troops advanced with precise, efficient movements. John watched them approach, heart pounding hard in his chest. "Captain!" Vance called out. Her torn uniform still bore Fortitude's badge smeared with alien oil. She slipped into cover with John, scanning the horizon. "They're flanking east. We're cut off from Bravo." John slammed a new power pack into his rifle. It clicked like a countdown. "Then we make our stand here. We hold them." Vance nodded, face set. Soldiers gathered, forming a ragged line at a crater where a tower had stood. They fired plasma bursts, pushing back the creeping alien drones. Grim realization showed on each face. "Listen up!" John's voice carried over the din. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. We knew they wouldn't let up, but look around. This is humanity. This is Fortitude. We don't bend. We don't break. We stand. We fight. And if we die with honor." The cheer that followed cut through despair, raw and primal. The giants of metal loomed closer, but the humans held their ground. Vance checked her weapon, gazing at John. "For humanity, for all those lost, for those we'll yet save." John nodded. Together they looked over the barricade. The Torellians charged, weapons blazing, closing fast. But John and Vance fired back, leading the squad in defiance. "This is it! Hold the line!" John's command echoed as he squeezed the trigger again and again, each shot defiance of fate. The battle raged, plasma and metal collided, orders and screams blended into chaos. John fought on, every shot aimed true. Vance moved with him, trusting the years between them, and John knew, no matter the end, their stand would echo through history. They were humanity, united against the dark, proving their worth with every breath, every shot, every heartbeat. John Graves gripped his rifle in the muddy trench, watching for Torellian forces coming over the horizon. His ears ached from plasma fire and stomping mechs. He pressed the radio at his side, shouting orders to his squad. He caught Vance's eyes. They nodded without speaking, determined. The air stank like smoke and ionized plasma blasts. John's radio crackled with odd beeps, cutting through the roar of the fight. The signal was old-fashioned, encrypted in a style from Earth's golden age of space exploration. The command center screen flickered, showing the impossible. Human ships, designs thought lost in history, warping into view. The legendary Lost Armada was real. Their ships slid between the Tyrellians and Fortitude, shifting the tide. John's heart raced, seeing the old ships on screen. He pressed his back to the trench wall, raising his head to bellow orders. "Look up, warriors of Earth! Ancestors ride out from legend to join us!" The soldiers peered up as the ancient ships appeared against the chaotic backdrop. A cheer pierced the endless combat din. John felt raw, electric hope surge in his bones. His voice carried clearly over the radios. "Stand strong! We are not alone!"
The Tyrellian forces hesitated, confused. Their ships split focus between the Armada and the dug-in humans. John knew this was their chance.
He leapt onto a barricade, rifle ready. "Advance!" he shouted. The humans spilled like a tide from the earth, pressing forward with renewed purpose. Vance joined him, her rifle dealing death to the invading machines. John felt the ground shift under their onslaught. Beneath the legendary ships, Tyrellian dropships faltered, disrupted. John saw victory becoming possible, tangible, born of unity between past and present. The iron will of every fighter claiming freedom with blood and soil. They battled not just for fortitude for now, but for humanity's legacy. The Lost Armada had sparked flames of defiance that would scorch the sky. Day after day, night and morning, the battle raged above Fortitude. Through the command center windows, John watched as ships from the Lost Armada and Tyrellian forces dueled in the skies. The Tyrellians matched the Armada's every maneuver in their grim dance of destruction. This had now become a siege, a contest to see who could endure the longest. John stared at the tactical displays tracking the battle. Each blip marked a human ship, a Tyrellian squadron, lives hanging in the fray. Energy levels flickered and dropped as the prolonged clash drained Fortitude's reserves. Ammo counts lowered, rations shrank. Exhaustion stained every face John passed in the stark hallways. In the mess hall, huddled soldiers spoke in hushed voices over half-filled plates. They talked strategy and whispered encouragement, their voices blending into a tapestry of determination. Eyes met John's with understanding as he passed. They knew every small victory, every trench held, mattered. The infirmary overflowed, the air thick with antiseptic and resolve. Medics tended each cot, uniforms stained, hands steady as they treated injuries. Alongside groans came laughter, defiance in the face of pain. In the trenches, the soldiers conserved ammo, movements precise and vital. They formed a wall of flesh and spirit against the Tyrellians' cold assault. Impacts against the shields and deafening blasts from above testified to their refusal to yield. They dug in, rifles ready, the last line of defense. John stood on the ramparts, hands gripping cold metal as artillery pulses shuddered along the railing. This place, these people, more than strategic value, they embodied something. A statement that humanity would fight on with its last shred of courage. Lieutenant Vance approached, uniform and face showing the siege's mark, but stepped steady, eyes hardened by command. "Report," John said, voice carrying over the din. Vance handed John a data pad. "We're holding, sir, but each skirmish costs us. To outlast them, we must conserve ammunition, rations." John nodded, returning the pad. "Keep rotating troops. No shift over 6 hours. I want them sharp." "Yes, sir," Vance affirmed, turning to relay the orders. John watched her go, an embodiment of the discipline holding Fortitude together. John walked the walls as soldiers saluted. He met their eyes and nodded, a silent promise their struggle was not unseen, their sacrifice not unmarked. At the highest parapet, John keyed his comm, overlooking the raging battle. "All units, this is Captain Graves. Look to the skies, the earth, the soldier beside you. You fight for each other, for our home. No matter how long this siege, how fierce their assault, we stand as one. We hold. The message reached every ear. John knew victory would not come from just strategy and tactics. It would be born of the human spirit that bound them together in this siege against the stars. And that spirit would endure, as would they all. John paced the Fortitude Command Center with the map spread before him. His eyes locked on the perimeter's weak point, the section with fewer troops. Vance watched John pace. She knew that look. The captain had a plan, a gamble, but he hadn't shown his hand yet. Gomez leaned on a console, brow furrowed with concern. "Captain, you sure about this?" His quiet voice carried weight. "Exposing Emperor is risky." John stopped and faced Gomez. "I know," he said steadily, "but playing safe lets them wear us down. We're doing this." Vance agreed. "We've held long enough. Time to shake things up." They gathered closer over the map. John traced the path to the weak sector and stabbed it with his finger. "Here, lure them in here." Vance nodded, picturing the silent battle sequence in her mind. Preparations began, urgent but steady messages deployed troops. Some areas fortified, while the bait zone stayed vulnerable. Outside, the Emperor hummed, lethal potential hidden in the shadows. John had it moved up, part of the scenery, yet unseen. Night fell, cloaking fortitude in darkness, the stage for their ruse. The Torellians would spot the gaps, and John prayed their arrogance would ensure their downfall. The command center thickened with anticipation. John watched the monitors showing the perimeter. The Emperor pulsed, ready and hidden. Hours passed, silence, stretching nerves thin. Then, radar flickered, Torellian movement. John's hand hovered over the controls, eyes fixed. "Wait for it," he breathed, like a mantra. The blip grew, a swarm coming for the gap. Vance leaned in, whispering, "They took the bait." The Torellians advanced steadily into the trap. John's thumb hit the trigger, unleashing the Emperor. The ground shook with its power. From hidden trenches, soldiers erupted, steel and fury. The Torellians met the ambush head-on. The trap snapped shut with clockwork precision. Battle lit the night as John's forces pressed their advantage, squeezing the vice laid with such care. In command, John, Vance, and Gomez watched the chaos they orchestrated. The Torellian lines broke under humanity's relentless resolve. Their perceived weakness was fortitude's cunning strength, a species refusing to yield. And as the battle raged, seeds of hope were sown on that bloody ground, hope that the war could turn with a plan as daring as it was desperate. Captain Graves looked out the slit of the bunker. The Torellian forces marched closer, looking to break through the defenses. Beside him, Gomez held the Emperor remote, thumb on the button. "Now, Gomez, do it now," Graves said steadily. Gomez pushed the button. A deep pulse came from the Emperor. It cut the air, hitting the ground in ripples. The Torellian machines shuddered as the energy surge fried their insides. Sparks flew from their joints. At Graves's signal, the human soldiers broke cover, moving deliberately. Their plasma rifles roared to life with destruction. The confused Torellians tried to react, but it was too late. Their tech failed them. The humans had gained the advantage. Vance led her team forward, yelling over the gunfire, "Push them back! This ground is ours!" They followed, firing controlled bursts, disciplined amidst the chaos. The Torellians fell back step by step, the relentless human attack too much to withstand. Graves watched coldly. A victory here, but just one part of the larger war. His voice was grim on the comm, reaching all defenders. "This is Captain Graves. We've bought time. Stay ready. They'll hit us with everything left. Watch the sky. We survive this one breath at a time." In the trenches, the soldiers looked to one another, faces dirty and sweaty, The orders were clear. They checked weapons, reloaded, and braced for the coming Torellian onslaught. This was just a chance to breathe before the storm returned. Humanity had shown its strength, and the Torellians would retaliate fiercely. Gomez wiped his brow, looking to Graves with respect and worry. "You think they'll strike back soon, Captain?" Graves watched the retreating enemy. "They don't back down, Gomez. They'll return, angrier than before, but we'll be ready. We have to be." Together they waited, Fortitude's defenders preparing to withstand the Torellian assault once more. John Graves stood like a rock as the ground shook with each blast from the Torellians' gigantic new dreadnought. The huge metal ship blotted out the sky, bombarding the earth. Craters exploded, soil turned to glass. Fortitude fired back, but their weapons looked weak compared to the massive dreadnought. Still, John didn't flinch. "Brace and fire!" he yelled over the rumbling chaos. "Hold the line!" His soldiers gripped their weapons, faces tense with determination. John watched the barrage slam down. Each blast challenged them. They met it head-on. Vance rallied her squad, her voice steady and commanding. "Squad 2, with me." They slipped through the burning rubble, weaving between debris. Rifles ready, they stalked the hulking enemy machines in the haze. Each shot was precise and targeted. Their movements flowed in the dance of survival. Gomez worked frantically on the Emperor console, hands stained with grease. Sparks flew as he rerouted power, coaxing life from the failing machine. It hummed back on, pulsing hope through the outpost. Gomez whispered to the unproven technology, "Just hold a little longer." The battlefield roared, but the human spirit burned brighter. The soldiers' shouts weren't fearful, but fiercely determined. They darted between cover, driving forward, never stopping. John watched his unrelenting people through the smoke. Captain Graves's voice cut through the din. "We stand. For Earth, for humanity, we do not give in." The cry lifted hearts and bound them together, and they kept fighting, defiant against the dark sky. In the dark command bunker, John leaned over a console as symbols flickered across the screen. His eyes scanned for the dreadnought's weak spot, a chance during the recharge. His fingers drummed the metal, impatient. He rose and faced his waiting team. Their eyes held the weight of what was coming. "We got a shot," John said, steady, meeting their eyes. "Hit the core when it recharges. This isn't about being heroes, it's about giving humanity a chance." Gomez handed John the plan. John read it quick, locking eyes with his friend. "Get it done. You know what's at stake." Gomez nodded, a silent promise made. Vance stepped up, rifle scarred from battle. "I'm with you, Captain." John's jaw clenched. "We move now. Time's not on our side." The team checked their gear, weapons, ready for the fight ahead. John led them through Fortitude's corridors as soldiers paused to watch, saluting their bravery. The hangar clanged with mechanics, rushing to ready the stealth craft. Its engines hummed, barely heard over the noise. The team boarded wordless. Nothing left to say. The shuttle roared to life and slipped into the black expanse, now a battlefield graveyard. John flew fast, fingers dancing as the massive dreadnought grew on screen. He wove through debris, stories of past defeat. They reached the coordinates, shuttle cold to the touch. "This is it," John breathed, stealth-like in the dreadnought's shadow. The team crept along the armored hull, undetected. Deliberate, controlled, only their breaths broke the silence. At the hatch, John signaled the tech. She worked quick, overriding the lock. They slipped inside the metal maze. Deeper they moved, John guiding them closer to the core. No resistance yet. The Torellians looked outward, not in. The core chamber loomed, a tangle of cables overhead. John signaled stop. Heartbeat loud in the quiet. He whispered, "Get the charges ready, minutes at most." The demolitions expert nodded, attaching the explosives. John watched the timer count down. The others guarded the exits, weapons ready. The charge set, they retreated, alert for discovery. The shuttle waited, lifeline home. The team scrambled in and John piloted away as the countdown ticked. The core would explode silent in space, but its effects certain. A human-made fist against the dreadnought. The shuttle raced away, carrying hope itself. Behind, the dreadnought shuddered, lights flickering down its length. The mission done. No need to see the explosion, just feel the shuttle shake with its force. Hear his team cheer triumphant relief. John set course for Fortitude, eyes to the horizon. The battle still raged, but they had struck, shown humanity's defiance. Given their people that most precious thing, a fighting chance.
And as Fortitude grew nearer, a beacon amongst the stars, John knew it to be true.
The shuttle landed on the dreadnought with a short metal clang, the dull noise lost in empty space. John checked his gun, everyone ready without a word spoken. They opened the hatch, revealing the ship's insides. Long steel hallways stretched ahead under harsh lights. Their suit sensors mapped the layout. They moved quietly ahead, John signaling each turn through the twisting passages meant to confuse. But they had studied the maps for hours and walked the maze with familiar steps. They saw the first Torellian guard come around a corner. It faced them, blue skin and eyes shining. It raised its mixed energy and metal gun. But John shot first, hitting its chest. The guard collapsed with its weapon falling, its energy gone. They kept going as heat grew near the core, sweat dripping into John's eyes. The suits fought the hot wall of air. Gomez muttered tech readouts behind John. Shields are good still, but not for long. Let's move fast. More resistance came as they went deeper. The Torellians knew invaders were inside. Alarms sent them running to protect the core. John's team met them head-on. Shots ricocheted off steel walls. Heavy armored Torellians charged, but John's team held firm, rifles cracking with each deadly shot. A door appeared. John set the explosive, fingers steady though slick with sweat. He nodded at Vance, watching their rear. The blast blew the door in with a deafening boom. They charged inside, plasma bolts first. The core chamber was chaos, wires dangling from above like veins. Elite guards waited with bristling weapons. John barreled into them without pause. His rifle butt crunched the nearest guard's helmet. Vance was at his side, her blurring knife finding another Torellian's throat. "Left side!" Gomez yelled. John spun and fired. A guard fell with its power pack exploding bright. They fought in a focused rhythm honed by drills. Humanity burned bright in the dreadnought shadows. The team pushed on through fatigue as determination carried them forward against impossible odds. Blood stained their armor, but surrender was not a thought. Finally, the room was silent. They quickly set charges on the core, each motion practiced and sure. John met Gomez's eyes with unspoken trust. "Do it," he signaled. Gomez's hands worked smoothly to activate the bombs. Vance watched the doors. Charges set, they left at John's signal, no wasted time or words. John felt the shuddering explosion as they escaped to the battered but intact shuttle. Back at Fortitude, John allowed himself a tight, triumphant smile. They had struck deep in the monster's heart and lived. Humanity endured. The crippled dreadnought no longer threatened them. All would soon know a small resolved team could outwit and defeat even the most fearsome enemy. The steel core chamber looked like the inside of a metal beast. Wires snaked out from its pulsing center. John's strike team stormed through the clanging door, boots thudding as they spread out, scanning for enemies. They barely had time to plant the charges before a rumbling laugh bounced off the walls. Krillak emerged from the shadows. The hulking figure wore black armor that swallowed light. His mocking eyes found John. He flexed his gauntleted hands, eager to hunt. John gripped his rifle, steady and ready as Krillak approached. "You're wasting your time, human," Krillak boomed. his translator hissed with each word. "You're weak, brittle. Your kind isn't made for war." John met his glare with focus. He steadied his breath and slowed his racing heart. Krillak charged like an angry bull. John dove aside, rolling across the floor. The team opened fire. Energy bolts streaked toward Krillak, but the Tyrellian was relentless. He plowed into their formation, scattering them like leaves in a storm. Krillak threw a punch. John barely dodged it. The force whipped the air from his lungs. John slammed his rifle butt into Krillak's knee, getting a grunt from the hulking alien. Not enough. Krillak swung again, backhanding John's forearm. Pain jolted up his arm. John grunted, but kept his footing. The team battled reinforcements across the room. Rifles cracked. Tyrellians shouted as they fell. John couldn't look away from Krillak. John's mind raced, testing every tactic and move against Krillak's brute force. He ducked a swing and punched Krillak's armored gut, earning another grunt, but the giant didn't fall. They broke apart, circling like gladiators in an arena. Krillak roared, "You've got heart, human, but no strength to match it." John's resolve hardened like steel. Each blow he landed, blocked by armor or finding a gap, showed humanity's defiance. John parried, weaved, struck with fury. His team watched his back, fighting for every second he needed. Krillak swung a fist like a hammer. John caught his arm, twisted, and used Krillak's momentum to slam him into a console. Sparks erupted. Krillak roared, surging back up. This was no mere brawl. It was a clash of beliefs. Conquest versus right to exist. Krillak fought for might. John fought for humanity's place among the stars. They traded blows, a dance of destruction. John felt every hit, each one carved into the war's fabric. He would not bend. Humanity would not break. With a final surge, John struck Krillak's armor joints. Sparks flew. Krillak stumbled, wavered. Doubt flickered in his eyes. The team cheered, pushing reinforcements back with aimed shots. John stood, chest heaving, as Krillak regained balance. They faced off, two warriors knowing the fight was just beginning, a test of the future, of hope, of humanity's refusal to bow. The clash continued, unyielding, proving the human spirit's resolve. The heartbeat banged in John's chest as he circled Krillak. Muscles tense, he feinted left. Krillak lunged and John saw his chance. Pivoting, John smashed his fist into the exposed armor. The impact boomed. Krillak stumbled back, dented. John signaled his team. They moved to the core, planting charges in silence. Krillak shook his head, shocked by the blow. Vance covered John, firing at the Tyrellians flooding the chamber. Gomez set the charge, fingers quick. Numbers ticked down. They retreated, firing back. Alarms screamed as they ran through steel corridors to the hatch. Tyrellian energy bolts hissed past. They did not stop. The hatch loomed ahead. They reached it, poured through. A muted blast shuddered the dreadnought's bones. The ship died around them. Their shuttle waited in the bay. They boarded, sealed the hatch, shot clear. The dreadnought convulsed in death throes as they escaped. Outside, the Lost Armada battled the Tyrellian fleet. Fortitude's cannons answered the call, explosions silent in space. John's shuttle dodged fireballs and debris. The dreadnought exploded, shockwaves tumbling Tyrellian ships. John steered toward Fortitude, now a fury beacon. Tyrellians scattered from the relentless human fleet. John's strike had turned the tide. Hard-faced, John piloted them through fire. His worn team knew they had proven humanity's fight. Human will bends for no one. Their defiant roar claimed space. The Tyrellian dreadnought exploded into a fireball in space. Its metal hull groaned and buckled as pieces tore off into the void. The once impenetrable ship hovering over Fortitude was now just debris. In the command center, John watched the chaos unfold on the screens. He traced paths on the display. "Push them back," he ordered. "They're broken. Now's our time." Outside, the ground rumbled under soldiers pouring from the trenches. Laser fire lit up faces hardened with resolve. They shouted, working together without words. They knew the land, their home, their fight. The Lost Armada moved precisely, striking Torellian ships. Lasers and missiles danced silently, finding targets. Explosions bloomed, destroying ship after ship. Ground troops reclaimed cratered land, slipping in violet blood. "Advance!" a sergeant shouted. Others echoed the call, voices swept by wind across the battlefield. John watched the humans surge forward, firing rifles in defiance. "Keep moving, keep the pressure," he commanded. Orders, reports, victory hummed in the base. A private found footing on the ridge. "For Earth!" she cried. Those around her shouted too, a rallying cry shaking the sky. In the command center, John clenched his fist, eyes fixed on the unfolding battle. They needed this win, needed to show their strength. The flagship's fall confused the Torellians. Fortitude seized the chaos, hammering the retreating enemy. Behind rock formations, a sergeant led his squad to flank the Torellians, unleashing firepower. The enemy turned too late. In space, a pilot wove through debris, firing on a cruiser, watching it rupture. Another target acquired. Hope grew with each reclaimed inch of fortitude. It flowed through weary but triumphant eyes. They gripped hope as firmly as their weapons. Today, humanity would not fail. They would fight, and they would win. Fortitude stood unbroken, a bastion of courage. Tomorrow would come, and the galaxy would remember this day when laughter turned to respect. The morning sky turned sick-looking as Torellian poison weapons fell down onto Fortitude. The jars exploded when hitting the ground and released a deadly fog. The soldiers screamed as the mist touched their skin, burning their flesh and crippling the strong men. The troops grabbed their throats, gasping for air as the fog ravaged their lungs. The medics rushed in with sprays and bandages to try to help the suffering, but it was no use. Joan watched it unfold with anger churning in his gut. No way, not like this. Not with some coward's fog. John barked out orders with a voice that cut through the pained screams. "Put masks on! Get the hurt to shelter!" Vance stood next to John with eyes hardened against the agony. Vance's mask was strapped on tight. "We'll get through this, John. We always do." Gomez held a homemade scanner. His face was dirty from smoke and sweat. "I need samples. If this fog's got some flaw, I'll find the damn thing." The troops put up barriers, but some fell as the poison ate through their suit fabric. Others managed to drag their passed-out brothers and sisters to the makeshift hospital. The medics worked with purpose to help the soldiers whose eyes told stories of bravery in their agony. Inside the lab, John slammed his fist on the table. "No way we let them win with this dirty trick." John glared at the microscopes and bottles on the counters. "We need a cure, now." Vance checked her rifle and seals. "Our people are counting on us." Gomez put a jar into the test machine and it whirred to life. If it's some virus, it's got a pattern. If it's chemical, it's got a formula. And if it's either, it can be beat. The hours turned to days. Unable to sleep, the team kept testing and mixing. Their formulas kept failing again and again. But each failure just made their resolve grow stronger. It was fueled by the strength of their people. John didn't rest for even a minute. He walked the hospital, helping out and sharing words to keep people's hope alive. "We're humans," John said loudly, his voice echoing on the cold metal walls. "We stand, we take it, we win." Amid the relentless hunt for a cure, the breakthrough came, a mix that fought back against the poison. One soldier's breath steadied, then another's blisters started to heal. Cheers went up, not for winning, but for not giving in. The medics gave out doses. Their hands stayed steady as the lines at their tent grew. Each soldier who walked back from near death told of the tireless fight inside Fortitude's walls. John looked out over his people, faces drawn but unbeaten. The war went on, but they'd won this fight, and as they readied for the Tyrellians' next attack, they knew one thing for sure: humanity would never kneel. John walked around the command center, his boots clanked on the steel floor under him. The room smelled burnt and sour from the sick soldiers in beds nearby. John made fists, squeezing them tight until the skin around his knuckles paled. He kept glancing at the screens that showed his soldiers barely holding the line outside. A crackling ping came from the communications station. Lieutenant Vance caught John's attention and nodded across the busy room. The signal sounded familiar, but encrypted differently than normal. John took measured steps to the console as the light blinked. Vance flipped the switch, and a raspy voice came through static. "This is Arcane. I have information." John didn't know him, but could tell from his tone that this was important. He grabbed the comm and pushed it hard against his ear. "Go ahead," John said, suspicion in his voice. "I am Tyrellian. I offer you a weakness in our command. My kind, what they've done here is unforgivable," Arkaan said, sounding genuinely disgusted. Vance raised her eyebrows. John waved her off and kept listening. "You could be baiting us," he said flatly. Silence filled the space between breaths. When Arcane replied, his words came slow. "Meet me at the Eastern Ridge. Alone. I'll bring proof." John thought through the risks, scenarios running through his mind. He nodded to himself more than anyone. "Vance, cover me." He didn't wait for an answer. John walked out of the command center, heading for the meeting point. Stars dotted the night sky as he reached the lonely ridge. The landscape seemed peaceful compared to the chaos before. He found the tall Arkan there, his blue skin glowing under the twin moons. The Tyrellian held out a data slate with schematics and grids flickering on the screen. "Here," he said, lacking the arrogance John expected. John took it, scanning the information: communication nodes, supply lines, targets that could cripple the enemy if hit. It matched intel they had, now clear. "You're giving us your backbone," John said matter-of-factly, looking from the slate to Arcane. "Yes," Arkan replied. His shoulders sagged, showing traces of remorse or defeat. John nodded once. "Get to safety. If this is a trap, we'll find you." Arcane left without a word, disappearing into the night. John held the data slate, new plans forming in his mind. Back at command, the room buzzed with nervous energy. John laid out the schematics, with Vance and Gomez leaning in, disbelief and hope on their faces. "We hit these points, hard and fast." John tapped the slate. Vance studied the screen, lips thin. "This could be it," she said steadily, but with rising hope. Gomez pulled up maps and logistics, fingers dancing across the console. "We'll need every pilot and ship that can fly," he added. John locked eyes with each of them. "We do this, or die trying. But fortitude doesn't fall. Not today, not ever." They nodded in unison, a silent promise between them. The room sprang into focused action. Orders were barked, objectives flashed on screens. John's pulse raced, not with fear, but a leader's fury about to turn the tide. The plan was set, the forces ready. Humanity would stake its place here or make a glorious last stand. Every soldier and pilot carried that weight as they deployed into the cold blackness. Ships pointed like arrows at the heart of the enemy. John watched them vanish, chest tight with command's burden. The Tyrellians wouldn't know what hit them until too late. It was time for the hunted to become the hunters.